Welcome to Banking on Experience, the one-stop shop for all your financial services tips and tricks, the future of business and the future of the customer. Here is your host from CRMNEXT.
So Jerry, thanks for joining me today. Jerry Leisure, am I going to pronounce it right? Officium Labs?
Yeah, that's right. Officium.
Is that right? But you've got an amazing background that spans customer relations, customer service, really the future of customers, and I think the future of work. From what you're doing today at Officium, working with some of the largest gaming organizations, but the work you've done previously at Kabam and Postmates, you've lived all the way back into Autodesk and your prior experiences. You've really lived customer experience, from a number of different angles. And I think what's interesting in some of the discussion we've had before this is, you're in an industry that is absolutely on the forefront of AI, on the forefront of parallel computing. The gaming world really was the first user of a lot of the advanced technology that others are considering right now. Yet at the same time, those gaming participants, with some incredible spend levels, expect a certain style of customer service. And while people are thinking about bots and others, you're really thinking about humans and the future of work and even the future of the way we get paid. So I thought I'd let you talk a little bit, today about what you're seeing in that, that world of surging need and where you see the world heading in terms of service.
No, I think it's a really great question, and thanks for the opportunity to spend some time with you, Joe, and to share some of the thoughts of myself as well as to represent Officium. Yeah, I think it was interesting. I was kind of tagging into one thing that you mentioned about players in the video game space specifically, and how that's a little bit different than even your traditional old school console gaming space or PC gaming space, where you would buy a title, you'd pay the $60 up front, and then you'd play the title and so forth. So just as with many digital products, what we're seeing is this: hey, we'll give you something for free. You play it, you become part of the ecosystem, and then over time, if you want to enhance your experience, if you want to expedite your experience, if you want to become number one in the world, there's opportunities to make purchases in the game. And so when you were talking about the different types of services that a freemium video game player expects versus any other product, there are freemium video game players that spend more than $25,000 or $50,000 or even $500,000 in some games, and right. So
wow.
The way that I kind of explained it to executives in the beginning, when I first started talking to them about investing in players as they're investing in you, is I said, think about this player X over here who has spent $35,000 in your game since the game's inception. Basically, they've bought a low-end BMW, and they expect that type of a support, that type of an experience, that white glove, experience. They're like, hey, I bought a BMW. So if you buy a BMW and you have a problem with your BMW, you go back to the dealership, you kind of expect somebody to be there on demand, and to deliver that level of kind of white glove service, right? And so I think that, as the video game industry, has continued to transform, you start to understand players and customers, and you think about them much differently than, even other products or even old school video games. And you think about them like, these are key players, key participants in an ecosystem, which may include 2 million or 3 million players. And inside of that ecosystem, you've got, your free players who, they're there. They just want to keep trucking it and grinding it and try to do their best. And some people die and they'll die on. They're like, I'm not going to pay a dime. I'm just going to enjoy this. And that's great. You need those players in the ecosystem. You have kind of some folks that are in the mid tier, right, where they love to play, they enjoy it. Maybe their budget is different, or maybe they're invested in multiple different types of ways to be entertained.
Sure.
So they spend kind of the mid tier, and then you have kind of your high tier spenders. But what this kind of use case really helps us to understand more clearly is that the expectations of consumers are changing, right? And at the same time, you see companies who are trying to figure out, is customer service a cost or is it a value generator? And I think that's where the idea of Officium came from, is we'd worked kind of in these video games, these startup spaces, and we were like, actually, customer service is a value generator, but how do we prove that out? And then how do we help companies tap into that value? And so that's really where the inception came from. So as my co-founder Scott and I were walking around the streets of San Francisco, we're like, how can we experiment on helping companies see that customer service is a value generator, or as I like to say, it drives lifetime value.
Absolutely.
With your customer.
Lexus
And that's really,
would agree with you. I mean, if you think about Lexus, which was a Toyota brand that was created, but the way they distinguished themselves, at a time when, Japanese cars were starting to flourish and becoming reliable, is they created a brand that was associated with exactly what you're saying, white glove service. And so you buy the vehicle not because the vehicle is that noticeably different, maybe a little bit different than the Camry, when you're buying the Lexus version of it, but the experience at the dealership and the service level is completely different. And you're dead on. I mean, LTV, it's hard to differentiate whether it's, people move between games, right? But their real commitment to that game, it sounds like, is experiential too, right? The way they get service, the way they get treated.
That's right. And if you think about it in broad terms, when individuals make product purchases, it's a demonstration of their identity. And with gaming, when players make purchases inside of a game, there's a virtual identity that's associated with that, right? And so while some people might go out and buy a Lexus or a Lamborghini or a BMW, and that's part of their physical identity, there's a lot of people in the world that they're not interested necessarily in those things, and that's fine. They're interested in using their money for a virtual identity, for a virtual experience. And so it's really experiential, because not only do they get to play the game and try to be the best at it in the world, so they have a natural kind of competition that's built into them, but then they have this broad community of people that are all over the world that they get to connect with, engage with, learn from, build relationships with. And as you think through the transformation of relationship engagement, it seems even more clear now with Corona and COVID, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
How people build the relationships and maintain relationships, and they view their identity is super interesting. So if you go back and you talk about LTV and value, one of the things that we thought about as we were building out Officium is like, well, one of the big challenges, whether it's a mindset challenge or whether it's just kind of a legacy, this is how we do business, we're not going to change kind of challenge, which sometimes can be mindset and sometimes can be based off of financial or other things, is right now, the reason why companies have a hard time getting customer service to deliver that value is because they kind of tend to say, hey, can we hire somebody within 25 miles of this site to come deliver customer service for me? And so mathematically, within 25 miles of wherever the site is, it doesn't really matter. You have a limited resource pool of competency and capability. So when we thought about Officium, we're like, well, what if we build a talent place of capability that's global, where you get the best in class, best, kind of resources that can deliver capabilities from your frontline workers, quality managers, executives, analytics, quality, all these different types of things, right? What if we could experiment and see if companies are willing to resource with remote workers or folks in the talent place that aren't 25 miles away from them? And so that's where the experiment started about 10 or 11 months ago. Is, gaming is an early adopter, as you noted earlier, to a lot of trends. We're like, gaming is a space to give this a go, give it a try. And so we tried it out. We talked to a bunch of different clients, and kind of within, I think it was like 90 days, we had 5 clients that were like, hey, I want to experiment on this. I want to see if I can get the best person in the world, whether they're in Tanzania, India, the Philippines, Russia, Germany, the US, Mexico, wherever, I want to get the best person, to do this work. And so as we started to experiment and share a little bit more about our vision, a simple way that we explain it is, if you imagine kind of the customer service world as a mesh network,
right?
And you think of Talent Place as a mesh network, where you have hub and nodes in that network. And as you know, technologically, the stronger your network is, the more hubs, the more nodes talking to each other and delivering, information or value to each other, it strengthens, right? So we thought, well, what if we build Talentplace as a mesh network, and we bring hubs, which would be clients or people that have work, with nodes, which would be workers or people that need work or have competency, and we just say, hey, let's bring you together and build a mesh network of value, and then we overlay services on top of that as a container that allows them to see the value not only in a one-to-one basis, but to see the value at the ecosystem level. Like, how do 10 workers in the marketplace here give you 10x value in your overall product, right? And so that was the general concept. And, for example, when one client we worked with, we spent $1 million and we helped them get $4 million, in LTV. And other clients, we'd help them to think about in video game spaces, spikes are huge, right? If there's an event, there's an issue, spikes come up. We have burst capacity capabilities where some clients can now handle those customer spikes quicker, faster, and deliver better customer satisfaction, which equals better resolution and better LTV. So there's been some fun experiments as we've kind of launched Talentplace and really honed in on this concept that companies want to have value from their service experience. They want to understand how it can be a profit center versus a cost center. And by creating Talentplace, they now have access to over 10,000 plus workers that can give them the bespoke and niche value that they need to have to deliver that LTV for their company.
Well, it's fascinating because you talked to me about, in the past, the fact that so many people jump over nickels to save pennies. And what we're really talking about here is service to sell or service to add value into a relationship. Yep. And, interesting to me because, gaming is digital, quite frankly, so is banking. Everybody thinks digital is self-service, but it's not. This human interaction that we're having is digital, with flesh and blood on either side. And what you're talking to is really, how do I source great talent, which every organization, human capital, even though we have heightened unemployment right now, it will be a land grab for talent, for the digital players and other players as things continue to recover. But there's also, as you said, there's this inefficiency, and you're organizing a market for labor, very much like, Travelocity organized a market for travel, right? And the services around travel. You really start to look at, how do we make it easier for people to use great people, in their business? And, you've had to think through a lot of what's missing, right? The way that those people get paid is one of the things you and I talked about, and opportunity there. But it's also, how you empower them. How you give them access to the platform, how you give them access to insight, how you give them power to make decisions and create new value, or match this player with some new value that you're trying to bring to them. Again, in the world of financial institutions, not much different than in the world of the game. You're looking at how do I create LTV? How do I cross-sell? How do I create new value in that relationship? And as you were saying, the key to unlocking that isn't AI talking to that player. It's a human talking to that player powered by technology.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're totally 100% spot on. So we've trademarked a service stack, a model. And when you think about service stack, just think about tech stack and overlay it into service. And you look at, what are the technologies that you need to support the ecosystem of players, and what are the technologies like in AI, bots, analytics, big data that you need, right? And then how do you use your resources in the most efficient way to deliver the high value engagement opportunities, right? So our viewpoint isn't that AI is bad, or isn't that bots are bad. They're essential, but they're a component inside of a larger ecosystem that should be driven by human beings that are delivering value, and machines and data science that is supporting those human beings to deliver the highest value, and allowing machines and data science to deliver lower value, repeatable activities that are necessary for the ecosystem, but aren't where you want to put your most capable people. And then once you've identified that, making sure that the people that you put in those seats of those engagements, that they're the most competent, capable people around the world, not necessarily within kind of 25 miles. And then you overlay what you just talked about, which is this, you talked about two key things that I just want to kind of suss out and make sure folks are, catching, is there's a transformation in how people work. So there's a huge sentiment that people, whether it's a generational change, obviously coronavirus has really kind of expedited or accelerated it, or whether it's just a natural change in businesses. But, ever since the 2007 recession, what you've seen is this huge growth in independent work, side work, some people might call it gig work. 51% or so, I think it was Forbes said 51% of America or so is now doing kind of independent work. This is pre-COVID, right? And so people want more flexible environments to allow them to spend more time with their family, spend more time on the things that they believe are more important to them and their purpose and their own personal value in life. And they also want to work with, employers that challenge them, that they can drive value and have fun, engaging, learning experiences from. So I think that's one piece that you touched on, which we're going to continue to see a point probably 2030, 2040, where we'll see more and more kind of, especially in the CX area, more and more work from home capabilities, maybe even 60, 70% of the globe, especially in high infrastructure areas. But then the other thing that you talked about was payments, which I think a lot of people are like early days thinking about, wondering about, and they're like, oh, that's nothing, that's going to fad, that's a phase. And other people are like, that's the future. So, but in essence, we spun out from a company called Forte Labs, which is a fantastic company. They build a blockchain gaming platform where companies use virtual currencies that are, hooked into the blockchain and cryptocurrencies to deliver those services. And so we spun out from them. And one of the key concepts that are part of our talent place as we move into phase 2 is paying workers in either virtual currency from the game itself, right, the game they come to love and play, pay them that way, or with cryptocurrency, right, outside of the normal kind of, payment methods. And we're seeing, especially in the video game space, as an early adopter platform for these things, a lot of people are super interested in being played in non-conventional ways. They have different motivations on why that is, so we don't need to dive into that. But there's a lot of interest into that. And so as we built Talent Place, we built it not only for an eye for today, but it's also, what does the future look like? And then how do we build a marketplace that not only can adopt and bring value from the future of work, but also adopt and bring value in the future, of payments. And then you think longer term about network and network effect. How can those workers then bring value to each other? Like, it doesn't have to be a centralized authority that, brings value between the hubs and the nodes long term. Right. That's eventually workers and clients inside of Talent Place, they can bring value to one another on their own too. And creating that network and that network effect that allows them to do that and then maximizes on the future of work and the future of payments is a vision that we believe a lot in.
Well, it is, because as you say, I think, de-teching it a little bit for everyone, right? At the end of the day, blockchain is just a ledger. It happens to be a distributed ledger instead of a centralized ledger, but a ledger nonetheless. Keeping track of the ins and the outs. But what you've also described is another attribute of the workplace, which is community, right? And word of mouth, whether you start to look at and the people, by the way, that started this remote work, JetBlue did it early on. When you call into United 1K desk, very frequently you're getting somebody who's working from home. Some of this is to tap an expanded labor pool that wants to work a few hours a day, wants to work in the evening after kids go to sleep, wants to work in a passion area like the game world that they know and love, and this is their way of making some additional mad money to spend in the game, perhaps, or it's just another way to exhibit and participate in their passion and even work with some of the top players in the game, right? So why do different people take on different jobs? Some people become cheerleaders for a sports team because they really enjoy that team and they really want to cheer for the team, but they also want to get to know the players or know the ecosystem around and the fans.
Totally.
So I think you're really talking about, when we really talk about the future of the customer, all of these players in this game, are people that have bank accounts, right? All of these people, well, I mean, maybe the younger flavors, but eventually they get a bank account. It's either mom's bank account initially or dad's bank account, but eventually, they're the future customer, and they really are the future of expectations, right?
That's right.
That it be convenient. but they are also the future labor force, right? And
That's right. That's right.
you
I mean,
know,
there's a
weeding a
concept.
garden, you may be, a young, entrepreneurial gamer, instead of, picking weeds in somebody's backyard or hauling trash or mowing their lawn, they're actually doing something they love, which is supporting other people inside the game, as
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah. I mean, I think super fans of a product today are super workers in talent place tomorrow.
And I think this is really important as we sort of talk about what is relationship management. I have an axe to grind a little bit, or a I don't know, piece to polish. When it comes to what is the future of relationship management? How do you know me? How do you help me? How do you treat me? Not just respectfully, but with perhaps some deference. The person who's spending $500,000 in the game, I mean, they better get white glove service, because that $500,000 can go the game that they aren't yet, all at the top of the stack in. And eventually, it's like any other player of any other sport. They want to continue to prove that they're not a one-trick wonder. Right? They can do it in this arena, they can do it in that arena, so they can move on, just like bank customers can move on in others. But part of the way you create that LTV is by insight into them, the ability to act on that insight, the ability to give them something that's unique and valuable in the experience. At least I'm projecting the things I could sort of imagine from the
I mean you're really kind of capturing the 360 data view, which is in order for me, Joe, to have a wonderful conversation with you and to do this vlog, right? We had a pre-call where we gathered data on each other so that we could understand each other in a meaningful way, so that our conversation could be great. And that whoever watches the vlog will hopefully gain something interesting and useful and relevant that they can then take into their own jobs. And the reason why they're watching is because they want to gather data for themselves to improve their overall experience. It's not so different across any product across the world. So sometimes the data is anecdotal data, like you and I talking, and sometimes it's big data information that's gathered digitally in a product. But all of that data is intended to inform an individual, a person, to engage and deliver the best experience for that other party.
Right.
And so when you think about the data that sits, as an example, in the gaming sector, the data that sits in gaming, the data that sits in CRM, the data that sits in community, that trifecta, you bring it together, you have a 360 data view of either what a persona of a player is or the actual player themselves, and you understand who they are inside of the environment of your game, what's important to them, and sometimes you can even understand who they are outside of the environment of the game in a persona level, right?
Right.
And then you can figure out, like, they have choices. They choose to play the game. They choose to be entertained in this way. If I know who they are and I'd love to have them stay and play our game, what do I need to do to convince them or influence them that, hey, this is where they should be, not Hulu, not Netflix, not Facebook, not TikTok, wherever else they choose to spend their time. I want them to come enjoy the experience here. So I need to use really robust 360 data, and then I need to have a person to engage with them to help them feel the value that they want to feel, so that that purpose of why they're in the game, they can realize, whether it's virtual identity, whether it's winning, whether it's gratification, whether it's, becoming the best, whether it's taking on new challenges, whatever it is, so that I can help them feel that. And that's where it all comes together. And while Talent Place is a very interesting product, at the end of the day, it's that one customer with that one engagement. And is that engagement being informed in a way where the CS or CX worker can engage and work with that one customer and help them feel like their super fandom is recognized, appreciated, and they'll keep coming back. And that's what it comes down to.
And it's really remarkable, as you say it, Jerry, because I think giving everyone who listens to the blog a takeaway, right? It's turning insight into action. And and it's not just about delivering yet another point system or yet another. It's about intelligent products.
Right.
I think we have smart products and we have dumb products, and we could sort of look at the plain Jane credit card, relatively plain Jane. how do you start to create interlocking value or products that recognize that persona, right? And do something special. That person who's an award-winning game player, also wants to give to a cause or wants to do something else. And how do you have them play for the cause? How does that start to recognize them, not just as, sponsored by, the game or sponsored by someone else, but even, their work as a, we'll call them a game athlete, for causes that they believe in. And again, I think that that's where the human interaction, not just a survey, not just a conversation has the opportunity, and as you say, the insight into the data, but then we have to turn it into action.
That's right.
How to make it easy for that, person who's in that interaction with that player to give them something special. Give them something that's perhaps a smart product that really does embody greater value. And I think that's where I think the world of digital and AI empowerment come together, because putting that product in motion for that player and giving that player visibility of how much they've given to, I'm on the board of Beyond Difference, it's a nonprofit, that makes me feel good about how well I'm doing in the game. It may also help me feel good about that this passion of mine is also got purpose, right?
I mean, I think you've done such a beautiful job of wrapping it up there. It's insight plus action equals value, and then you think about what the word officium means in Latin. It means to serve, to help. And then you've just captured the whole purpose of our existence is to serve and help people get that value.
Yeah. And there's no question you're doing that now. And I'm looking forward to us working together to help, the broader ecosystem really tap into, the incredible opportunity to create value. I think, the imaginative value creation has been missing both a platform and the people to help, get that, that new product, that value-added service, that relationship advancement into the customers. And it's great to have this discussion because you've been through it so many times. Really crystallize, where things are really headed. And as you say, COVID, is just, catalyzing some of the challenge. Yeah. But it really hasn't, it's work like you're doing today that is helping people shift their awareness of what the opportunity is, really to give people greater freedom, give, great team members to great organizations and create a work culture that is fun and fulfilling. And I, as I listen to you, I mean, hopefully I'm playing it back well, because I do think, it really is Officium. How do we serve? And I think both of us really look at how do we create platforms that people take for granted just because they're really valuable, and they just become part of the fabric of their lives.
I totally agree, man. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for the wonderful opportunity to spend some time with you today.
And thank you, Jerry. Really a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Banking on Experience. Remember to tune in each week and subscribe, where we aim to simplify work, drive growth, and deliver on experience.